Welcome everyone to our session and so one more discussion about politics. So this topic is highly relevant today, I think so. Across Lithuania and Nordic countries and many other democracies, decision-making is still dominated by older generations. For instance, the average age of Lithuanian parliament members in 2024 is 50 years. And only 1.4% of member parliament aged 18-29, the youth age. In local government, the average age is 53 years, with men holding 67% of mandates. At the same time, we see inspiring examples of young leadership. So today in our discussion, we have the youngest municipal council member in Lithuania, 19-year-old Andrius Grumadas. So hi, Andrew. And also we have the youngest mayor in Norway, Håvard Handeland. Sorry if I pronounce your name not perfectly. Hi, Håvard. Also, today we have President of the Nordic Youth Council, championing the power of youth organization, Alexander Winge. Hi, Alexander. And today we have Alma Jokinen, Finnish EU youth delegate, working to amplify youth perspective in Europe. So, hi, Alma. I will moderate this discussion. I'm Gintarė Kučiauskaitė, psychologist and board member of the Lithuanian Youth Council, and this discussion will bring us to the question, is politics only for boomers? Bringing young voices to the table. So quick info for those who are listening us. At the end of the discussion, we will have a space for your questions also from the audience. So I will inform about that at the end of our discussion, and just please raise your hand. The volunteer will bring you a microphone, and if you can just shortly introduce yourself by name and quick 1-2 sentences question. So we are very welcoming your involvement in this discussion too. Let's start. Let's start talking about our topic. So, I mentioned the statistics that older generations are still dominate in decision-making processes. So my main question is, why, according to your point of view and experience, how do you feel and how do you see? Do politics still feel dominated by older generations from your perspectives, from your countries, from your experience? Maybe some of you could start this topic. Maybe someone has an idea.
Yes, I can start. First of all, thank you for having the chance to visit Vilnius the first time. A long trip from Norway, but it's a nice city. I feel that in Norway, many forms in the formal politics are dominated by the boomers or the older generation. But in my municipality, I think it's actually an exception. We have quite a young age in our municipality council. And I think the general underrepresentation of young people in politics is a self-reinforcing effect in that young people doesn't see formal politics as an arena for them to contribute because there are so few young people in politics. And they maybe think, okay, it's not a place for me, I'll wait, and maybe they also don't go vote. But from my experience, I was elected as a mayor at the age of 19 years old, not normal in Norway at all, but still I feel many young people in my municipality feel that the city council is a place to go and see when we have meetings. They take contact and have thoughts on the cases we discuss. So I think getting young people into politics, formal politics, will also make their representation more balanced, and the political parties has a special responsibility when it comes to nominating young people. In Norway, it's normal that some people have, like, on the top 5 candidates, one seat is always for the youth party or a young guy or woman, and that contributes to more young people into formal politics. So the underrepresentation has a self-reinforcing effect, and the political parties also have a responsibility to nominate young ones. And I got the chance.
So it's really glad to hear, and that we have experience in your country that it is really enforcing. What about you, Alma? How in your country and from your point of view you see the situation? Why still older people dominate in politics?
Yeah, first of all, hi everyone, it's very nice to be here. And like you said, my name is Alma and I'm the Finland's youth delegate to the European Union. So my work is primarily about inspiring young people to get interested not only about politics, but about international politics. And if we're talking about young people not being as active in politics, when we're rising above to the international level, it's even worse. If we're talking about the average age of parliamentarians, on national parliaments versus on international parliaments, such as the EU, it's much worse. So especially in my work, the contrast is so much bigger at international levels. I'm usually the only person under 40 at foreign minister meetings, for example, not only because the elected politicians are older, but also because Finland is oftentimes the only country who wants to add a youth delegate member to delegations. So in this panel in general, I feel like I want to raise the perspective of not only elected politicians, but also youth delegates in different arenas, because it's not only about party politics and parliaments, but it's also about providing young people different levels of participation. So in a nutshell, yes, the situation is very bad on an international level. However, I do understand my position as a Finnish delegate, because our situation is relatively much better than I've already learned about you guys.
So, Andrew, maybe you could continue about the situation in Lithuania with young people being in politics.
Yeah, so hello, everybody. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for coming to Lithuania, my dear colleagues. Actually, in Lithuania, so my name is Andrius. I'm from Prienai district municipality. I was elected when I was 19 years old. Now I will be 22. And probably I'm the youngest ever elected politician in Lithuania. So, but I hope the next elections there will be more and even younger. And actually, it's really nice here now to speak and sit and not be the youngest one, because I think the Harvard now is the youngest one. You are born in 2004, yeah? Yes. Yeah, so it's finally, it's nice. In Lithuania, usually I'm the youngest one. So, yeah, I can say that politics is dominated by usually older and male politics. And to be elected or even to participate in the elections in Lithuania is really hard because of the political hierarchy, because of the age bias, because of the time that you not have to do canvassing or to be popular, because usually you compete with older people who are principals, directors, are really active in political life. So it's really hard to be noticed and to be elected. But I think we will change it somehow.
Okay, thank you for your sharing. What about you? What do you see in your country and more broadly?
Thank you, first of all, for the invitation. I'm Alexander. I'm from Sweden, and I'm the president of the Nordic Youth Council. And first, a small explanation about what a Nordic Youth Council is before I go into the question, because it kind of builds up to it. So we're a cross-political organization between all the political youth parties that has a mother party elected to any Nordic parliament. So we gather youths from left to right on the political spectrum, from Finland in the east to Greenland in the west, and together we work to create a better Nordic for young people. And we especially work towards the Nordic Council, but also towards the Nordic Council of Ministers. And the situation it depends on what municipality you're in. For example, I'm also a municipality politician at home, and in my town we actually have a few young local politicians that are active and that even work with politics. But then if you go to the next town over, Linköping, the situation is very different. So it differs a lot. But since after the pandemic, the youth parties have seen an increase in membership, and this is not just one youth party or one special ideology. This has been the case for all youth parties. And I think that's the actual key into getting more youths into politics. It is to work with the youth parties and together both educate young people, work with other young people, and have the opportunity to not just see old people when you go into a room and discussing politics, that you can discuss it with people your age. And you can also change the rules of the party, which we did in the youth party that I'm from. So now a quarter of the candidates on our list has to be under the age of 35. So that's also a way to do it.
Okay, so thank you for your sharing. If anyone has maybe some remarks, so feel free to say. Huh?
Yeah, I can share some examples from Norway. The first female prime minister in Norway, Gro Harlem Brundtland, was elected for approximately 40 years ago in the 80s. And I've seen a clip from the state channel where a reporter went on the street and interviewed guys in suits or fishermen or whatever, and the guys in suits, they were asked, do you think Gro Harlem Brundtland, the female, does she fit the prime minister role? And the guys in suits said, no, that role suits best a man, with no argument other than it's just more proper to be a man role. She was elected, and now there is 2 candidates for prime minister in Norway, or they argue a little bit between each other if they are a candidate or not, and 1 male candidate. So the world moves forward. And the same state channel always also interviewed guys in my municipality. Do you think this young guy which just graduated from high school is suitable for the mayor role? Many would say no, and I understand why. But also some guys, which was quite like the guys in the 80s, said no, that role suits best for the elderly generation. And I was elected, and now these guys said, oh, I've changed my mind, it works. So I think by breaking those norms, the world goes a little bit forward, and you have to push a little bit in what's normal. And the youth councils, we also have a very active youth council in Norway. I think this is an effective way to get youths into politics. In Norway, everyone has to have a youth council in their municipality. And also, as a mayor, it's important to invite them into the formal part of the politics, because they doesn't decide anything by themselves. They just say what they think in cases we decide things in. So invite them into the meetings, give them speech time, and make them see this as an arena for also young ones. So I think by going forward as young ones, we can break a little bit in what is normal. So when the state channel is interviewing people in 40 years, maybe they will say, oh, it's normal to have elderly people in politics, young people in politics. You have to have a balance. And what I also think is, I think by having young ones in formal politics, the general trust in the society raises to the politics. Because for myself, I only own a bike. I don't have any other interest than politics and making the best things in my municipality. Other elderly politicians may be owning land, they have money interests, people in their back, which make them, okay, you can question their agenda. By having us in politics, you probably doesn't own land or have a big wealth. Our agenda is long-term. So by saying that politics today is dominated by old people, I think also the politics today is dominated by short-term perspectives, and the young ones give input on the longer term because it's the future we are discussing, and we are going to live longest in that future.
And what I heard is that when society see example of young people being in politics, they probably feel more trust, right? And maybe some fears regarding about youth being in politics, maybe with less experience, vanished, right?
I don't think you should see young people as a threat in politics. Look at the world. Look at the news. Who is the threat in politics today? Who's creating chaos, wars, all the mess we have to handle when we get old in the higher positions? It's not the young ones who is creating the chaos in the world. It's not the boomers, but maybe those before the boomers creating the boom.
Okay, I saw Andrus wanted to react.
No, I can just only agree with what Håvard said and applaud that you are a really inspiring speaker actually, and no wonder why you got elected. But who is from Lithuania here actually? Can you raise hands? Oh, that's a lot. I thought that you are foreigners. Okay, so but in Lithuania, compared to the North countries, you have a really bad situation probably. I don't say it's dramatically bad, but it's worse. Imagine, okay, the youngest ever elected mayor we have, it was in 2011, it was Mindaugas Sinkevičius, mayor of one of our district. He was 26 years old. Now, in the past elections, we elected the youngest, these elections, we elected the youngest mayor. He was only 31 years old. So we are behind your back, behind Norway's back, 10 years. So you can imagine and compare that.
And probably we will go deeper in the discussion how to involve young people in politics. But another aspect I would like to explore is why young people don't go to vote. It's not just their privilege, but also responsibility. Maybe from all of you perspectives, you have some insights. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, when I grew up, I'm born in '98, by the way. So I remember when I grew up, I was always told that my generation would be the first generation that would be worse off than our parents. And this was issues that we knew of, but didn't do anything about. And I don't think that the people who told me that knew exactly how right they would be. Because what young people grew up into today is an unsecure society, rising housing prices, an unsecure labor market, and so on, and so on, and so on. And these are not issues that we didn't see coming. It's definitely issues that we could see coming and that we could do something about in the past, but we didn't, or the politicians of the past didn't. So I think that has lowered trust in politics for a lot of people, at least from my generation. And I'm pretty sure that that trust has not increased with the generations after and the people born after me. So I think that my generation sees it like, well, people go to vote, the politicians tell you that they're going to fix all these issues, but they don't. And I think that's the main issue. You don't see the point in it because you've heard all these issues being discussed for 20 years, but nothing has been done about it.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different factors to be taken into account, so it's hard to even know where to start. But the biggest and the best way to start, from my perspective, is to look at the data questionnaires. According to the European Union Eurobarometer, that follows the political activity of young people, both in the European Union as a whole, but also in every single European country. In Finland, the biggest factor why young people didn't vote at the last European elections is lack of knowledge. Now, usually people only think about the first side of young people aren't told enough about what they're voting for. What is exactly is happening in European elections? What does it have to do with my life? It has to do with civic education in schools and resources of campaigning and information about voting polls and voting stations. But there's also the other side, which is there's a factual lack of knowledge, but there's also the feeling of not knowing enough. Officially, this is called the political self-efficiency, which in Finland is a very big problem. So it's not just about what young people actually know, but about how they feel in themselves about how much they know. So it's about confidence and not seeing young people as valid people to vote about things. And this has so much more different factors rooted into it. And it's a much deeper problem of young people not feeling competent enough. They don't feel in themselves that they're valid voters because they don't feel like they know enough and they don't trust their own skills. And this, like I said, is such a deeper issue than just the factual lack of knowledge, and it has to do with more broader societal pressures and societal images of what a politician looks like and how much you should know about politics.
I would like to turn the discussion on one point also about why young people don't vote, don't go to the elections. After last parliament elections in Lithuania, me and my colleague, we was psychology students at that time, discussed what happened because the young people involvement in elections was dropped. It was just about 33%. So we discussed that maybe it's because of that in political programs and politicians' speeches, young people don't hear themselves. They don't hear the problems that are relevant to them. What do you think about that? Could it be a factor? And do politicians then have to take into account more young people problem? Mm-hmm. Yeah, please, Alma. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the basis of representative democracy is that we need people who look like us. We need young people who speak like us and dress like us and not only act like they're adults, but are bravely and honestly young people, not only because it's important from the perspective of young people, but it's also important because young people prioritize different themes, as has been talked before already, because the priorities of young people aren't heard if there aren't young people in the parliaments. Now, what to do with or about this, there's, in my opinion, three most important factors when it comes to increasing young candidates in elections. Firstly is the funding. Factually, one of the biggest factors in elections is how much funding you have for your campaign, and like has been discussed, young people don't have a big network of sponsors or anything like that, and it really, really limits the opportunities of young candidates. Also because although you are campaigning for yourself, behind every candidate there is a huge number of people supporting that candidate, and young people aren't given enough network and support and inspiration to campaign for themselves. The second thing is support for first-time candidates. It's a scary thing for young people. It's a new thing. It's something that you can't prepare yourself for. And it's also the responsibility of the parties themselves to really inspire and add support for the youth and first-time candidates. And then the last thing is space for young candidates. Invite young people to election panels, invite them to different events, invite them to speak at schools, take them seriously. We have, at least in Finland, we have young candidates, but they're not seen as serious candidates and thus aren't invited to serious events. And this in itself is making it even more and more difficult for young people to even get elected.
Thank you for your insights. I also see Alexander want to react.
Yeah, I mean, because that differs a lot between the Nordic countries as well. Because in Finland, you elect persons, you elect a candidate, so you vote for candidate number 80 or whatever, and then you need to get a certain amount of personal votes in order to get elected. That's not the case in Sweden, for example. We have list elections in Sweden, I mean, the big issue there is that the parties do not put young people on the lists, or they put them very far down on the list. You can get elected as a person, but then 5% of the total amount of votes on the party has to be a vote on you. So it's almost impossible to get elected as a person. Usually it's the top candidate who gets elected as a person. But the main issue in Sweden is that the parties don't put young candidates on the lists, and also that they do not promote them in election materials and folders and so on. And the issue going to young people voting is that when they get a folder, they don't see a young person, they don't see the issues that they face. I talked about the housing market before, for example. In Stockholm, you can have to wait up to 25 years to get a first-hand contract on an apartment. And yet housing has not been discussed in any party leader debate for the last 10 years. So I think that's also a very important issue, and I also agree with the parties actually that they have to put trust in young people, and especially in Sweden, put them on the lists.
Håvard.
Yes, I agree with everything that's said, and as the Vice President said, we also have a list democracy in Norway. You vote for I mean, there is a nomination committee, and those are the guys you can vote for on the party. And I think, as you said, the moderator, everyone, maybe when they hear politicians or want to take part in an election, they look for who's talking about my problems, where are my problems in the discussion. And maybe that's too far away, and I also think it's are connected to representation again. When there is a huge underrepresentation of young people in formal politics and young voters, it creates distance between the formal politics and the young's interests. So I think if you get to do something with representation, maybe I mean, more people talks about the young's problem and everything. You can see, I heard a good example from the United States, another president who in 2015, when Donald Trump first won the presidential election, he came out of Trump Tower and he said, oh, how many people there are here, how many people there are, and well, maybe 20 journalists. And he said that the American dream is dead. And no other presidential candidate had said that before, but very many people thought about that. The American dream is dead for me. So you had a guy who was talking about my problems, and then they voted for him, even though he didn't represent their problems or had solutions for that. So politicians who talk about problems or interests of the young votes, maybe there's too few of them, but it's connected to representation, I think. So the parties have to have a seat for the young ones in the top candidates, if there is a list democracy, as in Norway and Sweden.
So it's really nice insights. Andrew?
Yeah, about young people voting. As I mentioned, only 9% of young people in Lithuania trust in municipals, and they think that they can do impact to decision makers. But I think about the activity of voting of young people, it's coming from two places. First one is from the family, from the parents, because actually in Lithuania, as far as I know, the trust in politics is really low, and if the parents or the families on the table speaking bad about politics, about decision makers, but really in a bad way, and didn't show the example to young people that you should vote, you should come, you should raise the questions to politicians and not be afraid. So that in that case we have really low activity. And the second, as Alma mentioned, I think in Lithuania we have really bad civic education. It only starts in a teenager age, around in the 5th or 6th class. It's too late. You should do it earlier to actually explain to young people, to kids, why you should vote, what municipal is accountable for, what parliament accountable for, what European parliament accountable for, and so on. So, yeah, that's all.
Yeah, continuing from your points, when we talk about issues regarding the youth, the narrative often drifts towards there's something wrong with the youth, when in reality it's almost always about something else than the youth. So it's easily about blaming the youth about something, when in fact, according to a ton of research, the voting behavior of youth is hereditary. So it's not only about young people not being active, but their parents being active. And not only that, it's certain families and certain lines of families vote, which is, again, even further making the democracy and democratic system harder. But then another point that I think is important when it comes to us, the seldom young leaders that have gotten a space in these hard tables and have this responsibility of representing youth. At least for me, when I sit at foreign policy and foreign ministry meetings, very scary places, I feel a pressure to be like an adult, which is exactly the opposite of what I'm supposed to do. I am there to represent the youth, and I encourage all the youth representatives and youth leaders to not kind of bend towards that pressure of being like an adult or like pretending to be an adult and knowing more than you do. In my role, for example, my responsibility is representing the youth, and I don't do that accurately if I act like an adult. And that's not what I'm meant to do. And I am a professional at this because I am a young person, not because I'm officially a professional. And that is the responsibility. And this comes down to very small things about what kind of language you use. Do you pretend to be a bit more smarter than you actually are? Sometimes you can skip the blazer if you go to school to speak. Sometimes you can be more bravely young. And it has a lot to do with inspiring other young people to actually participate as well.
Howard?
Yeah, I feel what you're saying, because me as well, I mainly work with guys from what I call the moon landscape, elderly people in politics and bureaucrats. So I also have to attend festivals to be re-youted, not to forget the youth in myself in the work. So it's important to not grow too fast in these jobs as you can. But one example, when you see the connection between voting rate and representation, is in the school elections, which is at this time in Norway on every school. The election rate is up to 80–90% in the schools. So the young people can vote. There's nothing wrong with the young people. But you have to have, and you see it when politicians speak their language, as they do in the school elections. The language can be a little bit rough and bad sometimes, but it works. I mean, you have to have someone who inspiring the youths, and then they vote. So there's nothing in the way for youths to vote. They do it in the school elections. Whether representation in the panel is different from the real election. So there is a connection.
And I saw Andres want to react. A quick remark.
Yeah, I just probably I will push myself in front of the train now, but I thought, yeah, I remembered my campaign and how I did canvassing and my posters and booklets, and actually out of 10 probably my priorities, only maybe 3 or 2 were targeted to the young people, and probably as I did canvassing and had a conversation with people, probably I was elected by boomers and older people, probably, yeah. But it's still, I'm elected, you know. Yeah.
That's democracy too, you know.
Yeah, that's democracy, because actually for older people in Lithuania, for example, it's yo, you are beautiful. Oh, you're young. Let's vote for you. You will be great. You will be good looking.
Okay, so I hear that boomers also vote for young people. Maybe we have to reinforce young people to go to politics. And Alma, before this discussion, raised a quite, I think, a quite interesting and important topic, that when we are talking about youth in politics, it's not only about voting and it's not only about going to the ballots, right? So maybe you have some experiences from Alexander, from your point of view, and Alma from you work in youth councils, in NGO, so maybe you can develop a deeper topic about how do you started your career in youth organizations, and maybe what barriers are there for young people to involve.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like I said, I work outside political parties, and for me, it's very important. While I understand the perspective of you guys, my personal goal is not to make every single young person a political candidate. I know, especially in Finland, it's a very big problem of young people not wanting to commit themselves to political parties at a young age, and I don't think that should be the only option. In order to be active in society, there should be youth organizations, national organizations, different opportunities to, on a low barrier, get to know the society. And like I said, my personal goal isn't to make everyone a political candidate. My goal is to make every young person feel like they're a part of the society, a part that matters and a part that can influence things. And that being said, I do personally highlight the role of youth organizations and other opportunities. The other aspect of my work outside of representing youth is providing young people in Finland opportunities to learn about the European Union and foreign policy and meeting European decision makers. So it's not only about making the young people themselves candidates, but also teaching them about political candidates, for example. Then coming to my personal story, I started my activity at 13, which was crazy, and people looked at me like I was crazy. I chose my first organization solely for the fact that it was the only organizations that had the minimum age of 13 and not 15. But for me, the biggest barrier before anything else was where I lived. I come from a very small town where nothing is possible outside of football and scouts. So I had to drive over an hour for the first ever political event, and it all started from there. But coming from this path, I know how hard it is for young people from rural areas to get started, and that strongly correlates with the voting activity, for example, in Lithuania, how it concentrates on young people from bigger cities, because here you see the elections so much more. You have so exponentially more different opportunities to learn and participate yourself, whereas in rural areas you can't join almost anything.
Mm-hmm. And how to encourage people? Maybe Alexander, you could share your experience in youth organizations.
Yes, of course. Since I come from a political youth organization from the beginning, before I was elected into the Nordic Youth Council, I myself joined at the age of 13 as well, and was, as it usually is when you join a political youth party. It's one issue that you're very mad about, and in my case, that was the change of the school system, and especially the grading system, which I felt was very bad. So I think in the beginning I just joined who wasn't in government, and then I was happy with my choice. Now, even 13 years later. So that's at least something. But I think that one of the things that we do in Sweden and that we haven't been able to do for the last 10 years in the way that we want it to be is to actually let the youth organizations be where young people are, in schools, for example. or on other events where there are young people, because I think that one of the most important ways to encourage young people to be active in society is that you get a chance to meet them. Because we did a survey in my youth organization about membership in political organizations, and one of the questions were, why haven't you not joined? Because first they got to answer what party they were voting for, and then the people who voted for my party was asked, why haven't you joined the youth organization? And the number one answer was, no one has asked me to. So I think that youth organizations have to be better at being where young people are, but also that schools and other institutions also have to let youth organizations in to the school or the festival or wherever young people are.
So, as I understand, we have a quiet way to involve people, just inviting them to come, right? And we are talking here about a lot of problems we are facing in Lithuania, in Sweden, in Norway, in Finland. Maybe you have some advices, maybe from your experience, you see what works, what brings young people into politics, or just in youth organizations, in civic life, that politics would not be just for boomers, but young people would come. Alexander. Sorry, Howard.
Yes, thank you. I also started my political career in the youth council in the secondary school. And the first question I asked myself when I sat in the first meeting was, what am I doing here? And I think those who are in charge, the secretary of the youth council, has an answer to that question. What are you doing here? What can you do in the youth council? And I think I'm from a small municipality in Norway, west coast, steep mountains, deep fjord, industry, only 5,000 inhabitants. And I also feel the challenges of being a politician from a rural area. But digital meetings, of course, helps. And every small municipality in Norway screams for people. I mean, we are being fewer people, more elderly people. Where are the teachers? Where are the students to be in these schools? And I think there is a beneficial recruiting effect in getting young people engaged in their local community. So what I have experienced in the youth councils was that, okay, now I have a chance to learn about my municipality, the politics, where does the income come, comes from, the school structure, the services of the municipality. And I saw the municipality more as a project that I could affect and have a role in. And that helped me, okay, I like this place, let's stay in it, engage more. And then I ran for office. So there is beneficial for small municipalities to have youths being interested in local politics, because then they are also interested in their municipality. It's a reason to stay and come back to the municipality when they are finished studying. What was the question? I think
It was about some advices for, I don't know, governments or just young people, how to involve them in the youth organization or in politics. But I think you quite answered that question.
We have actually started something new in the municipality. It has lasted for 1 year, but every second weekend we have what we call politics, pizza and pils. Pils in Norway is beer. So I think the politics has to find the youths. If the youths are about to find the politics, fewer youths will find it. If the politics is in arenas where the youths are, where they can share some pizza slides, discuss a little bit of politics, and then maybe more politics, and learn about cases in that forum. Yeah, I think that works. Many youths are coming and hearing, listening, discussing.
Okay, Alma, a quick remark.
Yeah, maybe 3 most important tips from my perspective, both towards states, governments, parliaments, youth organizations, but also to the young people themselves. Firstly, like I said, from my experience, the most important thing to add inclusion in youth activity is low barrier events. To add more easily accessible events with no strings attached, no organization status required, no political status required, just for people to learn and meet each other. This is super crucial. Also to meet politicians as well, without it being a political event. Secondly, politics is everything. It's not only EU and NATO and these hard bureaucratic events and conferences that I go to, for example, and I'm interested in. Politics is culture and sports and the store that you go to every single morning. It's the language you speak and the things that are being taught in schools. And making this visible to young people towards events and through events is super crucial. And it's important to think about if you're someone or from something that organizes things to young people. Does it always have to be about hard security in the NATO-EU relationship or, you know, geopolitical transformations? Or can it be about something that really touches the young people on a concrete level? Politics isn't just these abstract things. And then the last thing, especially towards young people, like I mentioned before, you know enough, you are an expert because you are a young person. If there are events calling for youth delegates or youth delegate positions like mine, if there are youth events, they're targeting young people and inviting young people because you know enough because you are a young person. And making sure that young people have the security and confidence to apply things is the most important thing. Half of my things and the incredible opportunities that I've gotten are just simply because I've had the courage to apply to them. And not enough young people have that.
I think we could discuss as young people being in politics or in youth organizations, not just an hour, but all day. But maybe let's open the floor to our listeners. And maybe someone has a question, so please say your name and maybe to whom you would address it, okay? So I see one person, maybe our volunteer could take a microphone. No? Okay, I can.
Thank you for this talk. My name is Jana, and I do have a question. Actually, this question even have continuation, but I will start from this representation issue with youngsters in politics. There's been one nice point that actually voters can kind of learn from experience. They see young politicians, they see that they can do the job. So Alma raised the issue that there's not much of an opportunity to raise funds. However, Alexander told that he had some success in changing policies. So maybe we can look towards some quotas for young people. Do you see it possible? I think everyone can answer this question.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your question. Yes, I think that it can be a good thing to do that within political parties, like we have done, for example. And what we did was that the national youth organization, we all went together and we tried to affect our party on a local level first, send in motions and suggestions to our local level and then to our regional level. And then when they all agreed, or at least the majority of them, the decision was made. So I think that we have to do it together within parties, because now we have the rule that at least 25% of our candidates has to be under the age of 35. And I think it's possible. I think it's also a good thing to get young people into politics. It's not the only thing, of course, because there can still be some issues with older people not letting young people in. So as of your last question, with a tip, that would be trust a young person as well, because we need to try to build up trust within the organization as well, and that goes both ways. But I really do think that our system has worked very well in order to get more young people higher up on the lists and into councils and into parliament.
Andrew, I saw you wanted to react, so just a quick, if you can remark.
The question is for everyone. So I don't think that we should change any policy, because probably we should have to change the constitution. But in my party, we have a quota. We have like if it's female, so then male, female, male, female. In every 10 seats in the electoral list, we have to have a young person under 35. So yeah, so it's quite nice, yeah.
Do you want to react? Just a quick remark, or we can.
Save time.
Okay, we can save time for one more question. Maybe some other questions. Okay, another one. Okay, you can ask.
As I already told, my question have, let's say, continuation. We can go from another side. So at first, I will provide some context of my question. We surely saw all the talks about Joe Biden and about his health. And we know that certain jobs have health requirements. Do you think, is it possible to discriminate old people, for example, by their health? Let's say some diseases can be, let's say, a problem, something like a border that people cannot cross to become a politics. I know it's not an easy topic because, again, discrimination sounds hard, but it's very possible thing to discuss. And it's one of the maybe factor how we can bring more young people.
So maybe Håvard, Alma,
Yeah,
you have some insights.
Thank you for the brave question and the important question. It is something that is constantly being talked about and should be talked about. It emphasizes a lot of different problems. Personally, I don't support things like a maximum age for voting or health checks for voting, just for the pure reason of how do you draw the line when it comes to democracy and discrimination. However, I do think instead of kind of lowering the maximum age, we should support the lower end by the things that we've mentioned here. It's not only that we have people like Joe Biden, it's also because we've built the system where people like Joe Biden have the privilege of being there. So it's not only about, attacking the old people, but also supporting and rising above with the young people.
Okay. We have some more insights.
Yeah, short answer to that, if I understood it correctly. With I think that it shouldn't be a roof of age. I think the democracy will sort those people out by people not electing one with clearly semi-dementia. So I think that it works by itself, I think. But I think the problem with the Joe Biden and the reason why there is only elderly people with money in the United States running for office is they also have a lower age of running. Is it 35 or something? But I think the root problem there is that you has to have much money to run for election, and you has to have a huge network, maybe in finance, big guys in the back. And you doesn't have the social mobility as we have in Norway, for example, where you can run for office if you are poor, rich, young, old. So I think you have to attack the root problems, and that is not the age, I think. Yep.
Okay. If there would be one quick, short question, we could have a time. Okay.
I'm not a young person anymore. So I give you a question, and I missed quite a bit at the beginning, but the question is, if you fail to vote as a young or old person, should you lose any social privileges or rights as a citizen in any city or country?
Okay. Did you hear the question? Maybe someone. Yeah.
If you don't vote? Yeah.
If you don't want, yeah. Do you have some consequences on your rights?
Thank you for the question, first of all. I don't think so, because I think that in a democracy, it's your choice to either vote, and not voting is also a choice. And that can there can be plenty of reasons behind why you don't vote. Maybe you don't have a trust in the politicians that are that you can choose between. That can be one issue. But there can also be other issues to why you decide to not vote. But I think that I know that certain countries have laws where you have to vote. I don't think that's a good thing, because I think in a democracy you should also be able to choose not to vote, and that should be your choice only.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in Norway you have like penalties if you don't vote or something, no?
Not that I know about. Of course, we throw them in prison if they don't vote for 20 years. No, we don't. We don't have any penalties for not voting. Then 30% of my population would be under a kind of a penalty. So it's a good thing. I think also it should be a choice, and I don't think you solve any problem by giving them a fine for not voting. You clearly wouldn't know who hasn't voted as well, maybe. I think you should again go to. I mean, the root problem is not the age of the candidate or those who not vote. I think you have to ask the question, why are they not voting, and then go to the factors of why, and then maybe you will see a rise in voting, the voting rate. So I don't think you should have maximum age or penalty for not voting. Go to the root problems and try to solve them instead. But yeah, creative proportion.
Yeah, thanks you again for a very important question. I agree with the previous comments about not supporting a penalty or a sanction for people not voting. Firstly, because it would make people vote for the very wrong reasons, and they're not the reasons that I personally support when it comes to voting. But also because the data revolving around people, and especially young people who are not voting, is in itself very valuable information for a democracy and a civil society. Like I mentioned, the Eurobarometer annually made examines the exact reasons of why young people and citizens in general do not vote, and there are different factors, and that itself is very valuable information.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe also tell the young ones in society. I mean, half of the population of the world lives in a democracy. The most of the population, the majority, doesn't live in a democracy. So the privileges we have in having a free election and everything, I mean, we should appreciate it, and more should. So sometimes I would also think that they should have a penalty for not voting. It should be something you have to do, because it's such a huge privilege. Yeah, we should think about it.
So, Andrew, a quick
I think
remark.
voting is like paying taxes. You should do it, and you must do it. But about the penalties or some, I don't know, social losses, I think it's open question, and maybe we can discuss someday after maybe 20 years if we don't solve the activity of voting in Lithuania.
So our discussion is going to an end because the time is running, and I think the time ran very, very fast in this discussion, in these interesting insights from different countries. Maybe you have, if the person is sitting, young person is sitting in this audience or watching us online, maybe you have a very, very short advice or a word for young person considering political career or just wanting to join. What would you say very, very quickly for the last word?
Yeah, so for young people, don't be afraid to stand up, and for the government or the older people, I think don't be afraid to trust in young people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And the 2 points that I've raised already is first, politics is so much more than the things that you see in media. Every single thing that you are interested in your life and you are passionate about has something to do with politics. So focus on that instead of the symbolic stereotypes of politics. And the second one is, like I said, you are a professional because you are a young person. You know so much more about what concerns young people than those boomers at the parliament.
Thank you, Alma, very much. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a short and obvious one is that the decisions made today is affecting the future we are going to live the longest in handling the climate change, the demographical shift, technological revolution. Every decisions today will have a huge impact on the future we are going to live in. So it's important to bring young voices to the table.
Thank you.
And I agree with everything that's been said, obviously, but but I think the most important point is to the young people that no one knows better what it's like to be a young person today than you do. and your perspective is important if we're going to create policy that really affects the issues that you face in your everyday life. And to the older people in the party, please put your trust in a young person, because you don't know, maybe that young person is the next minister, the next mayor of a town, or it's just going to be a very, very active party member, but still an important part of your party. So make sure to put your trust in a young person.
Okay, so thank you very much for each of you, for all our speakers. Thank you for all of you who came here live and everyone who listened us online. I think it was an inspiring discussion, and maybe with these discussions, more young people will be enforced and encouraged to go to politics and youth organizations. So thank you very much for your attention.